Unless you've been living under a rock for the past couple of years, you'll know that AI has completely exploded into the mainstream. But it's also changing the way that people learn how to code. I've been asked a number of times by people who are in college or just new to coding about how to use AI, and I think it really boils down to three main areas. Number one is velocity, using AI in areas where you already have experience to move faster. Especially early on, I do think there is a right way and a wrong way to do this. If you don't have any idea what you're doing and you're asking the AI to spit something out for you, whether it's for your homework or to get something working on a project, to me that's the equivalent of asking your roommate to copy their answers. Regardless of any potential moral objections to doing that, you might get your code working, but if you do that often enough, you're skipping a very important part of the learning process, which means you're going to build a weaker foundation or you're just going to do a lot worse on your tests. The better way to leverage AI for velocity is to use it in areas where you already have some context. Maybe that's for writing boilerplate code you've already written a million times, you don't need to take the 5 minutes to write it again. Or maybe you can't remember the exact syntax of something you're trying to do in this particular language, but you understand broadly what you're trying to do. Instead of needing to go and look that up, you can rely on the AI to help you here. As someone who frequently flips between a couple of different languages, this can be a big help to me. I might know exactly what I wanted to do from a logic perspective, but I just don't have the muscle memory to be able to type exactly the right syntax. There's also just some things in coding that can be really tedious, where you have to do the same thing over and over again. I think a good example of that is getting good unit test coverage. AI can generally do a pretty good job of building out unit tests, and as long as you check them over, make sure all of the edge cases are covered, maybe build some of your own manually if you need to, that can be a great way to get test coverage a lot faster than if you were writing all of those tests from scratch. The second use case for AI here is learning. In the last section I said I didn't think it was a good idea to just ask the AI for code and then to copy paste it or just a tab to complete it, because you're skipping out on a really valuable part of the learning process if you're just blindly taking code and inserting it without really understanding why it did that or how it works. But that's just one way to use or potentially abuse AI. It's also really good at providing explanations of different concepts or to provide more context around an existing piece of code to explain why it's doing what it's doing. Even when I don't explicitly ask for an explanation in my prompt, a lot of times I get a little blurb along with the code sample that explains what the lines in the code are doing. And just reading that and trying to understand how that fits in with the code is already so much better than just copy pasting the code in and seeing if it works. Because now at least you're trying to do that learning. You're trying to understand the connection between conceptually why that code is doing what it's doing and the end result of what the code actually does. But we can make this even better if we're willing to do a little bit of prompt engineering. You can ask for an explanation of a topic at a high level, like what is dependency injection? And then you can get an overview of that topic and maybe some generic examples, and then you can try to write that code yourself and see if it works. Or you can ask for deeper explanations of code to be broken down in smaller chunks. So instead of having one large thing and then just a generic blurb around it, can that be broken down into smaller pieces, and then you have deeper explanations around those pieces so that you know line by line what exactly is that code doing. All of this is possible if you're willing to put in the time to write a little bit more specific of a prompt. And until the past couple of years, this is something that I would have been doing if I was using something like Stack Overflow. Yes, for things that are really small, like a one-liner, maybe you just drop that in. But for anything that's a little bit more complicated, it's either reading through someone's explanation of something and then understanding how to build out your own solution from scratch, or maybe someone provided an answer to a similar question and now you need to understand it well enough so that you can adapt that solution and insert it into your project, because you're not getting a tailor-made solution from Stack Overflow. So use the AI to facilitate learning. Think of it as a personal tutor who can give you hints and explain concepts to you and help break things down into smaller pieces, not just as something where you can quickly copy paste blocks of code and move on with your life and skip that learning step. And the third and final piece of this is experimentation. And this goes for all developers, not just for newer ones. And it's something that I don't think developers are doing enough, which is to understand the power and the limitations of the current state of the AI. So much of modern AI is about finding use cases where it's helpful, whether that's in your workflow of finding ways to be more productive or integrating it into the things that you're building. Using a tool like ChatGPT is completely free to use, which means at the most basic level, go use something like that and just understand the basics of prompt engineering. Get hands-on experience with it. Don't just read about it. Learn what works well. Learn what doesn't work well. Learn how to make it come out with things in a certain format. Learn how to make the outputs more consistent. Learn how to poke at it when it's not cooperating with you. It's all in the spirit of trying to understand how it behaves. It's one thing to read about techniques that other people are using and the ways that they're integrating AI into the stuff that they're building, but it's so much more valuable if you actually then go and play with it and get hands-on with it and not just read about other people's experiences with it. And if you want to go even deeper into this and you're willing to spend a little bit of money, you can do so much more if you start experimenting with the APIs, whether that's with trying out different models or the image generation and recognition or speech synthesis. There's so much more there than what you can do just poking around with something like ChatGPT and trying out basic prompt engineering. This is an area where I am actively investing time to learn more about this stuff and how to integrate with it. And I would expect that because of the pace that it's moving at and it's constantly evolving, even if you did this exercise a year or two ago, you might be surprised to see just how much more you can do today. And I would say another year or two in the future, it's going to be even more crazy. When you look at some of the video generation stuff that's on the horizon, we've seen wild improvements just in the past couple of years, let alone compared to 5 years ago, with what's possible with these models. This item might not feel as directly actionable or helpful as the first two, but for any developer, regardless of skill level, I really do feel like this is something that's worth experimenting with to get a sense of how to better leverage AI as part of your workflows to be more productive, and also just if you're someone who likes to build things, whether that's side projects or anything else, how you can maybe integrate AI into those things to make them even better. Anyways, that's 3 ways that you can get going with AI today as a newer developer. Obviously, the field is continuing to grow at an incredible pace, so I don't doubt that in the next couple of years, there will be so many new ways to grow and to learn as a developer and to build things more productively and to build out better experiences for end users using AI as part of your tool. I'm really excited to see where it all goes. But hopefully, at least for right now, this is a good place to start. That's it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.